Wonderful. So, hello again. I'm Shayna Jones, the Outreach Coordinator for Bene. Much of my work centers around our annual Campaign Nonviolence Action Days, which take place from International Peace Day on September 21st through the International Day of Nonviolence on October 2nd. For anyone who is new to this work, Campaign Nonviolence is a project of Bene that's been running for 12 years. And every year, thousands of people around the country and around the world organize events and actions that address issues like war, poverty, racism, and environmental destruction. And each year, we also highlight a set of calls to action. Well, this year, our theme is nonviolence towards self, others, the world, and the environment. And today's training falls under the call for nonviolence towards others, protect the vulnerable. And it couldn't be more timely or important. So, the purpose of this training is to explore how we can practice real world nonviolence by intervening safely and effectively when harm or threats of violence occur. Whether you're part of community group, mutual aid network, neighborhood safety team, or just someone who wants to feel more prepared, you're in the right place. You'll be hearing from the team at Nonviolent Peaceforce, who are leaders in this work globally, and they'll guide us through an interactive session grounded in community safety, mutual protection, and care. By the end, you'll walk away with practical tools for personal and collective protection through nonviolence. So we're so glad to have you here. Also, to learn more about Campaign Nonviolence Action Days, feel free to visit the link that I am sharing in the chat right now and make sure you save it somewhere to be able to access it later. And now, to further introduce our wonderful trainers and begin the session, first we have Melvin Shardy, Programs Manager at Nonviolent Peaceforce. Melvin is a dedicated human rights defender building safety infrastructure alongside immigrants, Muslims, and BIPOC communities in New York and beyond. We also have Kwari McDaniel, a program specialist at Nonviolent Peaceforce. Kwari works to create safe ecosystems for BIPOC communities and LGBTQ plus individuals in New York and other regions. And rounding out the team, we have Tiffany Dunn, the hub coordinator at Nonviolent Peaceforce. And Tiffany plays a key role assisting both the administrative and program teams in Minneapolis and beyond. I will now turn it over to the NP team. You have the floor. You're on mute, Melvin. Um,
Yeah, can you hear me now?
yes, perfect.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much, Shannon, for that generous introduction. And I want to say thanks to everyone who have made the time to come to this gathering. And I think, like you said, it's really an invitation for us to come to the acceptance that nonviolence is a way of which we care for one another, is a way of which we show up in this world, and is a way of which we assert the dignity that we have as human beings. And as we come from Nonviolent Peace Force, we're here to create the experience with everyone so that we all practice together what it means to live in a world that is free from violence. And before I jump right into it, I just want to say I'm also called into this work because I was born in West Africa, and I was really born during the years of the Civil War. So I grew up in conflict. I was born in conflict, and 15 years of my life, I could not have childhood because there was a civil war going on. So as a little boy, I saw what violence can have, the impact that violence can have on a whole community. But also through the process, I also saw the impact that non-violence can even have if people in a community decided to have dialogue instead of thinking about the differences that they have. And I was able to see my whole community deciding that the only solution to violence is actually non-violence. And that is why I'm calling to this work, because I've seen it firsthand, the impact of what nonviolence is. And I'm also calling all of us today to embrace that, to know that nonviolence can have a huge impact, not just across the world, but also here in the United States. Um, and so this really leads me to talk about a little bit about Nonviolent Peace Force. We are an international humanitarian protection organization. We work alongside communities to build peace and to protect civilians who are caught up in violent conflict. And when I say civilians, I'm talking about ordinary folks, ordinary people who maybe use the subway or we use the buses, people who go maybe to hospital, people who, who are just maybe children in school, people who go to access medical facilities, everyday folks who just want to keep themselves safe but don't have the resources to do so. And so when communities invite us, to embrace nonviolence, we come with certain principles. We also come with the knowledge that when we talk about safety, we are talking of nonviolence. When we talk about even nonviolence, we are also talking about non-partisanship. In many places where we are invited, we tend to come not to take side in the conflicts, but to be a container of that space. And I think that is why we are here today. We are here as a container of which we are ready to pour out the experiences that we bring. But also we emphasize also the primacy of local actors. We believe that we don't have a solution towards ending violence in this world. It is the communities that bring those solutions to us. And the knowledge that each of us have here is what we're going to bring together. So that is why this is not just going to be like, a form of lecture. It's really going to be an interactive session where we learn from each other. And that is why we say we keep us safe. So my colleague will come in to say a little bit about themselves. But for now, I just want to talk about the training roadmap, what we're going to get out of this experience today. We're really going to share tools and resources, maybe technologies around what community center safety mean to you. But when we talk about safety, a community center safety that is really grounded in nonviolence, but also in unarmed civilian protection. I'm really emphasizing unarmed civilian protection because there are a lot of folks around us in our environment, in our communities, who don't have the capacity or the agency to protect themselves. And so that is why we say safety with ourselves or non-violence with ourselves, but also with each other. So we are welcoming each other to embrace non-violence, but we are also welcoming us to be a witness, not just to be a witness, but to act on behalf of those who need protection. And that is why really we emphasize the aspect of unarmed civilian protection as an alternative to armed protection and all of that. So, yep, so we have what we call community agreement, and it's an invitation as well. I want us to take a moment to pause. And the reason why we came here, the reason why we came to this training, the reason why we decided to leave like our busy schedule, to come to this experience. But also, I just want to invite us to take a moment to practice community care. Um, Yes, and because the essence of practicing community care is that we are going to share information with you, and we might want you also to share with each other. And I know in many cases, somebody might say, oh, I don't want to engage more, or I just want to keep quiet, or I just want to keep silent. But we are really encouraging us to practice care as a community, because that is the only way we can actually learn and grow and increase our capacity to embrace nonviolence. So we say yes, but we also assess our capacity of our yes, and then we respond based on the strengths or the capacity need that we have in this moment. So we say we meet each other where we are. So it's out of invitation. We are we are coming to the space as facilitators, but we don't have all the answers. You're also coming in the space as a member of the community, but you don't have all the knowledge. So we say take space, but also make space for other people. We embrace curiosity, ask questions, and we really appreciate if you also offer insight using the chat function or just raising your hand to say something. You can also stop me in the middle of the presentation as well. Most important, the process at your own pace. I might be speaking fast, okay, or better still slow. I might not be at the same pace as you, but I just want to invite you to engage with your own capacity. The last but not least, self-care is equal to collective care. There's no better way to say this than maybe using the quote of Chris Lee Boggs. Chris Lee Boggs was an Asian American human rights activist and educationalist who, for the most part, advocated for the right of all Americans. And so her work really informed how we approach nonviolence, how we approach safety that is grounded in care. And she says the only way to survive is by taking care of one another. And I think that is why we came here, because we care about the neighbor next door. We care about our world, what is happening right now. And we want to do something. We want to respond. But I think the only way we can respond is, first of all, we need to take care of ourselves and one another. Uh, Without much ado, I will now invite my colleague, Kari, to, first of all, say a little bit about himself and talk a little bit about and lead the training, and then I'll come in again to support as well. So, Kari, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melvin. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyrie McDaniel. Pronouns are they, them. I've been working at NP as a program specialist for the past 3 years. And for the past 5 years, I've been a part of community safety. I think I spent most of my early 20s really trying to figure out what was my purpose, how did I want to contribute to supporting the community. And I think for me, just seeing safety and how much of an impact and how crucial safety is for our communities. So just want to say thank you everyone for being a part of this training. First, we're going to go over what is nonviolence, how does that involve informed consent, and what is right relationships. So at NP, we understand nonviolence as a conflict that has an unmet need. But we also understand that nonviolence does not need to rely on physical force. So with nonviolence, that also takes being able to build a right relationship with folks and communities. So you never want to assert yourself in a community or demand or suggest on a um, sorry, suggest advice without informed consent as well. And last but not least, nonviolence is also solidarity. So being able to take into account that it's not sabership or being passive, but being able to understand again that nonviolence comes from a place of unmet need. So next, when we think about safety, especially in the context of nonviolence, uh, we like to think of it from a holistic approach. So when it comes to safety, everyone has different needs and priorities. For some folks, it um, may look like supporting or prioritizing physical safety. That could look like maybe attending to an injury or just being mindful of your physical capacity. In terms of digital safety, it could look like maybe ensuring that you have a strong enough password or that you have some type of two-way authenticating I'm tripping over the word uh, two-way factor for social media or certain apps. And then lastly, we have psychosocial safety, which is taking into account your emotional safety.
Yeah, Carrie, if you will, just to add to this, build up on what Carrie has said, because we tend to look at safety from really a holistic lens, and that we all come to this training with really different safety needs. I have been to a space where a group of folks says they care about maybe a bathroom having, gender affirmative, different signs of gender. And that is really important to that community. We've been to other community where it says they care so much about how they use their phone, the password they use on their phone, and whether they are being monitored or not, or the Wi-Fi they use, even coming to the spaces and all of that. So we have different communities that whose trust have or are eroding because their different safety needs are not being met. And so the reason why we are talking about safety as a collective, as a collective is because we want to ensure that we are all meeting our safety needs for each other. The need I have, maybe I might have a psychosocial safety need. You might have, for example, a physical safety need. But then when we are able to see the different safety needs that we have, and like you're saying, the circle, right? Each of the circle kind of goes into each other. So it says that there's no need that is more important than the other. And as we tend to see how the different safety needs intersect, we also tend to imagine what are the needs of another person who doesn't look like us, or who doesn't talk like us, or who lives in another part of maybe United States. We tend to see ourselves as the same. Another person who belongs to a different religion but might have like different safety need from you that belong to this other religion or orientation. So it's really important for us to reimagine what does safety mean for another person, for ourselves, but also for, I think, each other. And yeah, Carrie, back to you. Just wanted to add more to that.
Thank you, Melvin, for adding context. That was very helpful. So next, we're gonna be going on to the next slide. So before we go deeper, we wanted to offer two questions. So the first one being, when you hear the term safety, what does that mean to you? And feel free if you want to answer the other question as well, which is what types of safety needs do you have? So we're just going to take a few seconds to allow folks to go into the chat. Feel free to drop your answers. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you also don't need to. But we just wanted to invite folks to be able to do that. I'm happy to name an example. Um, so I was a little nervous at first, but I think Melvin, a few minutes ago, just even being able to jump in and add context kind of helped me feel allowed myself to recollected and grounded, which we'll go more into detail later, but um that's an example of what safety can look like, so I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah. So we're really inviting folks to engage. Maybe just with the first question, when you hear the term safety, what comes to your mind? Or what does that mean to you, in fact? Just share one word or a chat.
So I'm seeing from people in the chat, being able to go through my life without fear of being harmed. Next, we have safety equals not being harmed. Safety equals being accepted as I am. We also have my friends and neighbors being safe. Space that allows me to be my true self.
Beautiful. I love this one from Robert. Safety is being able to worship without fear of physical or emotional violence. Wow, that's beautiful. And also for Max, knowing some of the people around me, being able to depend on them somewhat. Trust, communication, empathy. Wow, so beautiful.
Thank you so much, everyone, for including your responses in the chat. Feel free to continue doing that. We're just going to move on to the next slide. So next we have a tool that at NP that we like to use. This is probably one of my favorite tools. It's called the OODA loop, but it's under the skill set situational awareness. So with situational awareness, really taking into account your space, your environment, really acknowledging the information that is being applied to you. And I would say that this is a skill set that specifically with the OODA loop that everyone uses, maybe on a more subconscious level, but with the OODA loop, we're trying to bring more intention to that. So with the OODA loop, it stands for observe, orient, decide, and act.
Yep. Should I move next?
Yeah, you can go next. Yeah. So maybe I can name an example. I know folks are from different parts of the country, but maybe I can name an example that's relevant to New York. So say for instance, you're riding the train, you're observing the inside of the train, you see the passengers, you see people on their phones, maybe someone's reading, it's quiet. So really taking in the space of the car inside. Next, you're orienting, which is establishing what is normal within the space and what is an anomaly. So for instance, in this situation, anomaly could look like maybe the train conductor announcing that your stop is going to be skipped. So next, you have to decide based off of your resources, your knowledge and experience. Maybe you don't have experience. Maybe this is your first time on the train, unfortunately. But then you have to decide what you want to do to be able to get to your destination. So once you decide, you act. And the cool thing about the OODA loop is that you can continue to go through the loop until you're outside of the conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, Kerry, I just wanted to add, I'm glad that both of us are sharing our experiences with the community. And but I think when sometimes when I think about the auto loop, Kerry, as you share, like we said, like it's really mindfulness in action. I think this is one of the tools that is really available to us. Like all of us here, we have come to this community with five senses. We use our senses basically like every day for everything. Like when I started, I was talking about how my community had survived maybe genocide or civil war or famine or mass poverty, something like that. But this tools has been passed down to us for survival. That is what we use to survive. And that is why we are inviting all of us today to also think about what is going on around us, what is going on in our world today, and how can we use our five senses as a means of survival. We are living in a world where it says the only way to disagree with your enemy is to have a gun, or is to stab them, or is to build a very tall wall around you. That is the only way to disagree with someone. But like we said, like conflict is really inevitable, but like violence is not. And that we have all of these God-given tools and resources that has been endowed to us that we can use. And one practical aspect of using this tool, like I have used it for the most part because I always call this tool as my kind of emergency tool. Whenever I feel like I'm stressed out, whenever I feel like maybe I'm somewhere where someone is going to hurt me or someone is going to harm me, I always put on my own loop. I'm always observing, taking information about my surrounding. I'm establishing what is normal for my situation because it's always good if I have been going to this maybe grocery store and I know that whenever I go there, I'm able to get my stuff. But on this day, I noticed that something's not going right. There's somebody at the grocery store who is not allowing me to go in. I've already established that a baseline that that behavior doesn't make sense. And then I'm able to decide like, so what do I do to keep myself safe out of this situation? So it's like I'm coming out with my goal. I'm trying to think about the resources that I have. And this tool really helps us to also know that we can also rely on other people to keep ourselves safe. We can also help other people to look for resources around them to keep themselves safe. And then once I've decided my plan of action, I know that there's a threat, and if I continue to go towards the threat is going to harm me. What do I do then? I have to move through the action, my observation, my orientation, my goals, and the resources I have to keep myself safe. So I'm going to ask myself, what is my plan working? Have my goals changed? Am I going to come or am I going to keep coming to this place or am I going to stop coming to this place? So these are really like questions that you can ask yourself in real time to keep yourself safe. So with this tool, you're not going to rely on a gun or you're not going to rely on maybe a third party. to be able to keep yourself safe. So in real time, while you're walking, while you're on your daily, adventures, whatever you're doing at home, walking to school, walking to work, on the bus, on the subway in New York City, for example, you're always relying on these tools that you have, to be in control of your life, of your environment, but to also offer support to those who are in need. And so I invite us to think about the circle of the other loop. It doesn't stop. It keeps going because it reflects the idea that at the end of one violence or at the end of one threat of violence, there's a possibility that another violence is going to occur. So you're always falling back on your outer loop to be able to take information, to process your emotion, and to act based off of your capacity, but also the resources that you have. So I'll stop here. Robert, your hand is up. You can say, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, unmute yourself and
It just occurred to me, I may be about to say it, that the OODA loop sometimes happens within about 5 seconds. You're confronted with something, you observe, you orient, decide, and act very quickly because you have to. But it still helps to have that OODA loop sort of imprinted in your brain, so you don't just freeze with a sudden incident that comes up in front of you. Your mind automatically goes through that OODA loop.
yeah, I definitely agree with you. And Carrie, do you have anything to add towards that? And then you can continue.
No, I think that's actually a perfect transition into the next slide. So Robert just mentioned freeze, but in the context of that, we have something called the window of tolerance, which is essentially our comfort zone. So that means being able to understand and recognize when you're pushed outside your comfort zone, what survival response shows up for yourself. So we have two survival responses that most people probably tend to know, which is fight or flight. And with these two survival responses, usually what comes up is a sense of anxiety. Maybe you feel a certain urge of rage, or maybe uh, a need to make an impulsive decision. And with flight, it could also look like a feeling of wanting to get out of the situation or conflict as soon as possible. With freeze or fawn, which is probably the two lesser known survival responses, what can come up is maybe having a hard time being able to process your thoughts in the moment, maybe just shutting down, um, going through the motions, but not really feeling present. And then with fawning, what that could look like is saying yes, maybe people pleasing, trying to agree with the person, the person who's causing harm to you, so that they can get out of the situation, or so that you can get out of the situation as soon as possible.
Yeah, and just to add one more thing to that as well, when we really talk about this two window of tolerance, when we introduce this two, it's an invitation for us to also expand like our tolerance, right? How are we comfortable? How are we able to be grounded in moment of conflict when somebody really does something that is crazy? But when we are within this window, we are very calm. You're at home, you're listening to music, you're with family, you're with friend, you're grounded, you are present, your emotion is, down, regulated, right? Because yes, we're at home, but once we step out, what happened? What happened is that things get out of control. The other time in New York City, I was taking the 7 train. I was going from Grand Central to Flushing, and there was this man who had like a mental health episode I could imagine. And he was on the other end of the platform. He was screaming at me, "Hey, you, fuck you." Sorry for the language, but like he was saying that at me, he was coming towards me. And so suddenly my response in that moment was I was frozen, to be honest. Because I know that you're never surprised in New York City, but like I was frozen because he was looking at me, actually coming towards me. And so I decided to lower my gaze. I was not even looking at him, but he was still coming, like insulting, coming forward. And so my immediate response in that moment, after I have established that this is abnormal, my plan of action was to take a flight. Because if I was going to stay where he was coming at me, he was going to harm me. And so the only resources I've had, okay, I have my legs, I can actually leave this man, I can move away from him. And so I took a flight. So that was how I was able to keep myself safe. We all have, come out of situations where we have survived, whether it is, interpersonal relationships, whether it is group violence, whether it is state and no state acts of violence, whether it is structural violence or inequality that we continue to see. The responses that we have are within ourselves. So when we talk about survival responses, we are just bringing awareness to how we would react if violence is happening. But we have option to react. So we always say there's no right or wrong way to react. With the structural inequality we see every day with the conflicts, violence across the world, sometimes we are really angry. We have anxiety growing. We are overwhelmed. We are raged. We want to do something. We want to take knife and fight back. We want to fight back in many cases. But just like me in the subway, sometimes fighting back cannot be the solution. Sometimes moving away can actually be the solution. Other times, fighting back can also be fighting in a good way, not violently, can also be a solution. But so Carrie, I wanted to ask you this question because I always ask you, what survival responses that show up for you when you are really out of your window of tolerance?
So
Mhm.
for me, I tend to freeze up when I'm pushed outside of my comfort zone. But when it comes to providing safety for friends or family or even a stranger, I tend to go into flight mode or fight mode, depending on the context.
Okay, so I really we want to turn back to the community and ask how have you guys like responded if you're really in a tense situation, have you seen yourself either becoming fighting back or taking a leave out of the situation or just freezing or just like funning, making fun out of the situation to just leave that moment? So you can drop it in the chat or you can just unmute yourself and yeah. Okay.
And I would add that with these survival responses, just continuing to add what Melvin has been saying, these are tools that have been passed down from, from family, based off of our culture. Uh, and these are responses that we've had to use to keep ourselves safe. So we really want to reaffirm that, again, whatever response shows up for you is completely okay. You've done what you've had to keep yourself safe, your family safe, your community safe, and that's completely okay.
It's true.
So when we think about our window of tolerance, when we're pushed outside of our comfort zone, it's very crucial to also be intentional in terms of understanding what helps you also stay grounded. So when you think about what grounds you, um, for me personally, I like to see it as like roots in the ground. So like what's really um helping me stay firm in that moment, or what can help me stay grounded in that moment during a crisis or a conflict. Next, we have what centers your focus. So maybe that could look like even focusing on your breathing. Maybe you realize in the moment that you are breathing a lot harder than you usually are, or maybe your heart is racing a lot quicker than normal. So just being able to really focus internally and acknowledge how you're feeling in that moment. Next, we have what reminds you of your agency. So what is something It can be an item, a person, a word, a color. What is something that you can go back to that can always help you feel grounded? And lastly, what reminds you of your support system? So do you have friends or community members that you can go to during a time of crisis? And really, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, very beautiful. And sometimes I often say you think about your anchor points as I don't know, as a space, as a kind of spiritual space that you go, a place that reminds you of your agency, like who you are and what is your place in this world. And because of that agency, it defines how you act to another human being, how you behave, how you show up in this world, you know. And so it's a beautiful tool that we also have as human beings. So all of the tools that we're sharing is really something that we have that we are endowed with and that we can actually use to really ground ourselves and to look for support and to affirm our dignity with another human being. And so when you think about the anchor point, always think about who you are, and yeah,
Thank you so much, Melvin.
yeah.
So I guess now we can open it up again for everyone. So when it comes to responses, what shows up for you? Well, we already answered that. Um, what keeps you grounded, or calm or collected during these times when you're pushed outside your comfort zone?
Yeah, I think everyone can just drop in the chat. We really want to know. We know there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and I think that is why we came to the space to come together as a community and to find common ground around how to respond non-violently. So what keeps you grounded, calmed, collected in these times of increased violence? Just share, Carrie.
And I would say with myself, um, Melvin and I were both facilitators, but we're both human. Uh, so like even for me, even though we do these trainings all the time, nerves still show up every so often. I think that's what makes us human. But I think something that helps me feel grounded is being able to trust my colleagues. So being able to trust Melvin and Tiffany, and knowing that if I stumble or if I freeze up, you know, Melvin can, support me, Tiffany can support me as well. So just really having that trust within the community, within my colleagues, goes a long way.
Beautiful. I think we have some chat, Carrie. Do you want to look at them?
Yes. So we have being in a community with trusted friends, family, loved ones, breathing techniques, change the scenery, connecting with nature, leaning into joy and whimsy. We love to see it. If I take a breath, I can calm a little bit. I think of those who loved me. Sarah Payton's meditations that validate my feelings and help me feel understood. Just thinking about these meditations.
These are really beautiful responses. I think Rosie says, mo physically moving from the location. Wow. Yeah. And Robert said, I stay calm by focusing on duty and responsibility to others. The sense that I can make it through this and focusing on the concept of mindfulness and impermanence. Wow. That's deep. That's really deep. So beautiful, I think. Yeah. Carrie, do you want to move?
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
So next, we're gonna go through a quick grounding exercise. Um, it's nice to see that people see breathing as a way for them to really recollect themselves and feel grounded. At MP, we really like to focus on that as well. And I think back to what I was saying before, especially in the context of how you're feeling physically, even just asking yourself, how is my breathing in the moment? How is my heart rate? Am I noticing, my muscles are tensing up? Just being intentional on acknowledging how you're feeling internally can help. Um, I know when I first moved to New York, I wasn't used to using transportation. So I used to have a lot of anxiety in the subway. But I think the more I started to intentionally check on my breathing, the better I started to feel more grounded being in those spaces. And over time, eventually I wasn't able, or I was able to not have to deal with the anxiety of that. So next we have, what are you feeling energetically? I will also note that these are questions that you can ask yourself, but also community members. You also don't have to ask yourself all of these questions, but even just asking one of these questions can be a way to ground yourself. So we have, what are you feeling energetically? So really taking into account your capacity. Do you feel connected again to your support system? Do you have friends, family members, community members that you can go to that can help you ground yourself? And then next we have, what are you feeling emotionally? So really being able to acknowledge um, in the moment what emotions are coming up during that conflict or crisis, and figure out ways to ground yourself. So going back onto some of those other skills that we have been talking about. And lastly, simply just asking yourself, what do you need for support, can be a way that you can try to help plan out some ideas on how to ground yourself, or asking a friend or a community member what support looks like for them could be a way to really start that process of grounding.
Beautiful. Carrie, I just want to read what Eric said in the chat. If I'm suddenly surprised by what is happening, I find it difficult to react in a useful way. I try to actively notice what is happening before it turns into a crisis. I think of the other people important in my life. I try to think of the goodness in others, even those that are actively engaged in a conflict. I might even hum, even internally, a calming music. Wow, sounds like a poem. Beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Um, Yeah, so we want to take a pause for at least like, because this work invites each other to also take a pause and just take a deep breath for 5 minutes, and then we can reconvene to continue with the last session of this experience. Just for 5 minutes, then we come back. Yeah.
So feel free to get some water, use the restroom if you have to, maybe take a stretch, stand up. I know we've been uh, this training has been going on for some time, so feel free to really take that break. Okay, everyone, we're going to be starting back up now. I hope everyone has been able to get some refreshments, take the time you needed to recollect yourself. And now I will pass the rest of the training off to Melvin.
Yep. Thank you so much, Carrie, and welcome back, everyone. Yeah, so we just want to continue with inviting us into the practices of nonviolence and some of the techniques that we can use to really not just keep ourselves safe, but to also offer safety to people that might need our support. And I think throughout this training, we've come through what is nonviolence and what is not nonviolence. And we've really emphasized that nonviolence is not about saviorship. We are not really going out there to save the world, but rather we are asserting the dignity of other people. So that is why we say like the primacy of local actors, the primacy of people that needs protection. And the tools that you're seeing on the screen, are really tools that Nonviolent Peaceforce have used all over the world. You might have heard of South Sudan, or DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there's a mass conflict going on right now. You might have heard of the conflict in Ukraine, the war there. There are, Nonviolent Peace Force, unarmed civilian protection activists. We have women community protection teams, youth community protection teams that have been using all of these tools that are coming to share right now to not just keep themselves safe, but to show up for their communities. Even here in the United States, we have been using these tools that have been passed down to us. So really what I want to emphasize here is that all of the words that you're saying, protective presence or accompaniment or interposition, these are words that community have used. And so we are just borrowing these words from them. We are borrowing these tools, these technologies from them as a way of honoring what has been passed down to us. And so one of the tools, because I know when we talk about this de-escalation, it's a very popular term in the United States, of course. A lot of organizations use this term, but we love to use de-escalation under the framework of unarmed civilian protection. And one of the offerings that community give each other to protect themselves in a really period of heightened violence and tension is what we call protective presence. The idea of just being nearby another human being to act as a weakness, you're actually interrupting the focus of the threats and you're removing the isolation. I don't know if folks are seeing the picture on my right hand. So this picture is really interesting. I think I need to explain a little bit to just bring home the concept of what is protective presence or accompaniment. So in this picture, you're saying the man in the middle of the picture is our colleague, Carlion Mendoza, fantastic community organizer. I hope someday you guys will meet him. But then on the side of, both sides of the picture, we are saying like people, folks, like ordinary community members. These are immigrants that have come, to United States, in New York City. They are domestic workers and providing, responding to the need of the community. And these immigrants are afraid that ICE is going to attack them and they will be deported. And despite, the service that they offer, they are afraid that someday they will be deported or someone is going to attack them and tell them that you don't belong here. And so they reach out to Nonviolent Peaceforce in New York City to just organize like a training for them on how to keep themselves safe. And so what we did in this training, because I was the one who took this picture actually, we decided to bring these group of men and women and individuals together. And we asked them to look at each other, and then we asked them to act or to imagine one person, the person on the right being the perpetrator of violence, or I would say, how do we call it? The perpetrator of violence, and the person being on the right, the victim. So the one who is causing the harm, the one who is being harmed. And then we asked them to look at each other, first of all. And then when they started looking at each other, when Carlian was not in the middle of them, you will see the tension. Like there was really tension because I'm standing in front of my enemy. I'm standing in front of someone who is going to harm me. And so what comes to your mind is to either fight or do something crazy. And so when Carleon stood in the middle of these people, so we did it one for each of them. When Carleon stood in the middle of those people, Carleon was able to just disrupt that focus of tension. And so that is the power of protective presence. Just being there, you are able to erase the focus of that tension. And so when Carleon was there, when he stood in the middle of them, each of these people were able to decide what their next step of action was, or what they would do differently without resorting to violence. And so in many places where like Nonviolent Peaceforce has worked, whether with women in homeless shelter, whether with refugees, you might need, whether with like even in New York City, with people who have been attacked, we have always gone there to just be with them. And just being there with another human being shows that you care. And sometimes we don't, we tend to look on these tools that we have, but they are a very powerful way of affirming the dignity of another person by just being with them. And so it's something that we do. We do offer this in New York City a lot. We had a woman whose shop was being attacked by some neighbors, and then she was afraid. Like 3 days, she could not come out to open the shop, and then she reached out to us because she was afraid to let the law enforcement know because she was undocumented, and so she wanted like unarmed community member to just be around. And so one of our staff members went there to just affirm, to say, hey, I see you, I hear you, we are here. What do you need? And just asking them like, some of the grounding question. What are you feeling physically? What are you feeling emotionally? And what support do you need? Sometimes it's not like about offering like the support directly, but just affirming that person's humanity is a way of just reducing the tension. And that is what exactly we did in this picture. To just say, hey, we are here. We understand the tension, but we are here without offering any, or without being a savior, if I might say that. But yeah, but I emphasize this point to emphasize the point of everything, like, because the goal of all of these tools and resources is not really to go and save people, but is to offer, based on our capacity. And so accompaniment is another tool. The idea that by just moving with them, by just moving with someone who have experienced harm, by just moving with someone who is out of their window of tolerance, right? Or who is walking through the subway, or who is undocumented, by just moving with them to see a lawyer, by just moving with someone who is undocumented to see the doctor, is really a way of showing up in this world and affirming the dignity of another person. And so it's an offering that you can give in your own practice, in your own work, as an individual to another human being or a community member that you can give. And then the other one is distraction. So we often say is the goal of distraction is really to draw the attention away from the person who is being targeted. I think across the world, women have used different tools and technologies to be able to create distraction. Sometimes people pretend as if they are on the phone just to create that sense of someone is listening, they are in touch with another person. I have had situations where a woman was going to the restaurant at night around 8, and then some folks were following her. And then she pretended as though she was talking on the phone with someone. And then the people like stopped following her. So they are really like basic tools that we can use without really responding to the perpetrator, but just pretending as if we are in touch with another human being, with another person, or someone is saying, that person can just de-escalate that situation. The person will just leave without harming you in many ways. And then the last one, the interpositioning. We always say this is the last resort. So after you've tried protective presence, or you have decided to just accompany that person, or you have, fall back on distraction. Another tool that you can use is interpositioning. And this picture also really demonstrates that when Carleon stood between these people, the woman on the right was not able to see the angry face of the man on the left. And so just creating that, erasing that sight between the two people, Claudian was able to reduce the tension a little bit, just for that seconds. And within seconds, I think someone mentioned it, that sometimes even when we are out of our window of tolerance, we really have to act very fast because we have a very little time to be able to respond or to react. So we have to decide either to fight or to flight or to freeze or to fawn within the seconds that we have. But these are really tools that we can take back home. These are tools that we can offer individually to people that we know, to people that we are in relationship with. So I really have to emphasize this. Maybe I go back to the start that nonviolence is about right relationships. Nonviolence is about consent. Nonviolence is about care. And all of these things have to be there for these tools to have the impacts that they have had all over the world. And it's really our offering to you guys today. And so we have what we call community scenarios, and it's an opportunity, it's an invitation for us to practice our situational awareness, for us to practice how we respond using our, survival tools that we have. It's an opportunity for us to practice grounding. It's an opportunity for us to assess our anchor points. What is our anchor point when we are out of our window of tolerance? How do we anchor ourselves? How do we ground ourselves? So all of the tools we've shared, this is your opportunity now, maybe to go into breakout groups and for us to practice these tools as a community. So first of all, my colleague Tiffany is going to read the scenario that we have, and then we are going to break you guys into breakout groups to discuss this scenario. It's going to be just one scenario, but I know different ideas will come out of each of the breakout groups. Yeah. So, Tiffany, you want to read for us?
Oh, I sure will. Good evening, everyone. Okay, scenario 1, shelter intrusion. Suspicious friend of a resident. Context. You're in the shelter common area with other women. A man arrives claiming to be the cousin of one of the residents. He's let in by a staff member who's new. He begins walking around, asking personal questions, and seems to be looking for someone. The woman he's asking for looks uncomfortable and doesn't seem happy to see him. And these are the group discussion questions. What steps can you take to stay safe and support the woman being approached? If you were alone in the hallway and encountered this man, what would you do?
Yeah. And so, does folks have any question before we go into the breakout groups? Harry, can you copy the scenario?
Scenario, yes.
Would I be able to have access to it in the groups? Shayna?
I'm sorry. Yes, you should be able to put it in the chat. It's main. Well,
Harry,
the question, I could put the question in like a chat, and a chat that's going to go across all the groups. I don't think I could take
yeah.
the full screenshot of the
Carrie, can you do that?
slide.
Carrie, you have the scenario, right?
Yeah, I have the scenario right here, so I
Can you
can add
paste it?
it.
Yeah. And also, Shayna, can you also put one of us in each of the groups?
Sure, I can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Join.
So we have like how many minutes more to go?
You said we have like 25 minutes left
Okay.
for the session.
Oh, I forgot to say, I think the breakout group should last for like 10 minutes.
Okay, I'll put a message in the chat to let everybody know it'll last for 10 minutes.
And so in those
Okay.
10 minutes, we're just gonna go over the scenario that's here and just talk through the
Okay,
scenario.
perfect. So I'll assign
Oh,
you
I'm
all to this.
asking, is that what we want?
Oh,
No,
oh,
that's what
sure.
I'm
Yeah,
asking. Is
I
that
only
what we
need like
want?
I only need about 3 minutes for my closing. So yeah, however you all want to do it, I think it's good to just yeah, have the do breakout room and then we can just use the last 10 minutes for discussion. That's perfect.
Can we, so Tiffany, can you join room 1? Carrie, can you join 2? And I will join
Yes.
4.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I'll oh, you all can click join yourself, then that's fine. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll join
So
around.
we have the scenario already, right?
Yeah, I'm about to drop it now.
Can you please drop that?
Mhm. Okay.
let's see.
Okay. I'll see you a few minutes from now.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm trying to make sure I broadcast the question into the full chat. Okay. I guess it doesn't let you put a bunch of characters. Let's see.
Yeah.
Let me try to chop up the question and see if I can put it in that way. Okay. Hmm. Okay. I'm gonna try to do this. This seems like it's gonna be a little different, but
Yeah.
hopefully it'll accept all of these characters. And the next thing, let's see, broadcast message.
I appreciate your patience.
No, no problem. I didn't know that Zoom only had a certain amount of characters that you could broadcast to all of the groups. So it's actually Zoom that needs to apologize. No, I'm just uh
If it's okay, I can go to room 2.
sure. Mhm.
I just wanted to check in to see how folks are doing.
You're good.
All
Right.
right.
Or are you able to go to room 3 if possible? It looks like it's only like two people. One person isn't joining.
Yeah,
That
I
would be
can
great.
go to room 3.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Five more minutes for the discussion.
community conversation around the scenario, and I I can imagine that that's how it felt for all of us. So there's opportunity for us to, take a step back and take a step front and really share with each other. What did you learn from the exercise? How did you feel to speak up or respond, in that situation, or to de-escalate the situation? You know, how was you feeling your body? How did anyone say or do something that inspired you? Like, were you listening to another member in your community? So we really want to hear some of the noticings and your impression about the scenario. Yeah. So feel free to to unmute yourself and or use the chat as well.
I noticed how quick that situational awareness exercise came up, and how it really validates that step of the process. That usually we just jump to like, what will I do, without acknowledging that actually the very first thing we do is we start reading the situation and watching and observing how fast is it escalating, all of which influences what we then do or act in.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Rivera. I think that is really the reason why I love situational awareness, because it really calls us to take a pause and to be really able to make, sense out of the process. Because sometimes when violence happens, our first response is to do something. But situational awareness really calls us to, just calm down and be able to know whether you have the capacity, or even whether the help that you want to offer is what that person needs. And that is why we say consent, relationship, and care, something like that. Yeah. Um, does anyone want to share from your group? What did you learn? What did you share in your group? I think I was in Robert, I was in your group. I was hearing that the scenario was similar to what you experienced somewhere. I don't know if you're willing to share that, because I think that was really a good point you were trying to make. Um,
Oh yeah, I see that in the chat here, Rosie. Uh, Riviera, she did have a great idea about taking the woman to another room, which was really great, to like fold clothes or just to remove uh, her out of that space. So that was a really good.
Yeah, I think in my group, I was in group 3. Very interestingly, uh, the folks that I was with, they mentioned how even with the shelter, just being able to fall back on the proactive contingency plans that should have been implemented from the get-go. So just being able to fall back on those safety measures, that process. Um, Folks also mentioned like moving the woman, or asking for informed consent to, maybe go to another room to help her get away from that situation.
but we're gonna have a few more minutes. You're welcome to share whatever you want to share with each other.
I'll share a little bit. My my group kind of agreed on everything we wanted to talk about, but I'll personally share that I have encountered a very similar situation in my past, but it was in a church situation. where a person who actually was later declared incompetent to stand trial and spent his time in the mental institution came in and started harassing everybody. And in that sort of very serious situation where everybody's getting very scared, which I imagine would be the same situation in a shelter where everybody in there is vulnerable and has concerns. It was very important to directly confront the person, to to talk to them, to distract them, to get their focus sort of on you instead of all the other vulnerable people around you. That's what I did, and it wound up being a 5-year journey of court appearances and everything else. But eventually, we got all the restraining orders and everything we needed.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think at the heart of nonviolence response to conflicts is the human stories. And what you really share really confirms that nonviolence is about recognizing the dignity of another person, and the fact that we are all willing to share these experiences shows that we are also willing to care for another human being. And I just want to say thanks to everyone for the time, for participating in this experience. And I hope to connect with you some other time. Yeah. Back to you, Shana.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. And I do have maybe a few minutes. If anyone has any questions they want to bring up concerning any community safety issues that they're having in their personal communities, this is now a time if you'd like to ask for advice from Nonviolent Peaceforce on any type of scenarios that you may be encountering in your everyday life that you like to bring up at this moment. This is also a time for that. If there are any questions that you'd like to direct towards the Nonviolent Peaceforce team. Okay.
I have a question. Is it ever a good idea to, if you're there's a group situation and someone looks like they might be a danger to someone, is it ever okay to be to talk to people beforehand, like that in any situation like this? Is it ever okay to surround a person and calmly walk them out, or is that escalating? I'm just curious.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anita. That is really a brilliant question. Um, yep, I think I would say, first of all, you have to go back like to the tools that we share already. Like we said, we move with communication, consent, and care, but also Carrie mentioned right relationships, right? So I think your fear is that moving this person out of this situation, we even further de-escalate the situation. And so one way to really know, to just know that the situation is not going to de-escalate is when you have a relationship with this person. So like we say, non-violence is not savership. We want to be in a relationship with people. We want to understand their need, and we want to ensure that we are meeting their need. Maybe that person's need is not really physical. The person doesn't need physical protection in that moment. Maybe they are emotionally hurt and they are looking for something that you might not think they want. So I think really talking to that person, trying to understand what their needs are, and if that need is immediate, is one way of getting that person out of that situation, because you also don't want to put yourself in harm's way, or you don't want by your intervention, you don't want to escalate the situation as well. So I'm just stop there.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was a great question, Anita. Thank you. And if anyone else comes up with a question after the session, we have recap emails that we send out. Feel free to just reply to us and send an email, and we'll try to forward it to the Nonviolent Peace Corps team or answer it ourselves in the best way possible. So I guess I'll go ahead and close out so we can end on time. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Melvin, Quarry, and Tiffany, for sharing your wisdom and practical strategies for keeping our community safe through nonviolent action. And thank you to everyone who joined us today, not just for participating in the conversation, but for your ongoing commitment to safety and care. As we move forward, we encourage you to put these tools into practice and invite others to do the same by signing up for Campaign Nonviolence Action Days this fall from September 21st to October 2nd, where you can take action alongside thousands of others across the country and around the world. This year, our core calls are nonviolence towards self, others, the world, and the environment. And whether you host a community safety workshop, organize an outreach event, participate in mutual aid, or simply just share what you've learned with others, your voice and leadership and your care makes a difference. So for more information on how to sign up for Action Days, please visit the link that I am putting in the chat, which is pachabene.org/action days. And the links that I'm sharing will also be shared on the recap emails as well. Also, this session is part of a series of Action Days trainings that we offer for free to keep them accessible to everyone, even though it does take resources to make them happen. So if you'd like to support this work for nonviolence, you're welcome to donate any amount using the link that I'm also sharing now as well. And this will also be in the recap email. Or you can visit our main website page, pachabene.org, and click on the donate tab. So again, thank you for joining us today. Let's keep building a movement grounded in courage, solidarity, and nonviolent action. Take care, and we hope to see you all again on our future trainings. Bye-bye, everyone.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you